Today I'm going to discuss why human aging should be cured. Before doing so, I'd like to explain what aging is and what causes it. Fundamentally, aging is the accumulation of damage over time. This damage takes many forms and can be grouped into 7 categories. Those categories are cell loss, epimutations, cell senescence, mitochondrial mutations, lysosomal aggregates, extracellular aggregates, and random extracellular cross-linking. Each form of damage accumulates over long periods of time. There are many theories of aging that try and explain why the aging process occurs. However, there is only one that accomplishes 5 key elements of a comprehensive theory for human aging, and that is the telomere theory of aging. First, the telomere theory of aging clearly explains the mechanisms that drives the aging process at the cellular level over time. It explains why some cells age and why some cells don't. It incorporates the proven elements of other various theories of aging. It successfully addresses the various objections to the theory, and it provides a clear path to clinical interventions, taking us beyond theory and to an actionable map for improving our health. Telomeres are the repeating sequences of nucleotides at the ends of chromosomes. They are responsible for maintaining chromosomal stability and proper epigenetic expression in the cell. Every time a cell makes a copy of itself, a small portion of the telomere is not copied. Almost every cell in the human body has a finite number of replications called the Hayflick limit. Human cells can replicate between 40 and 70 times before their telomeres become too short and they enter into a state known as cellular senescence. Senescent cells contribute to virtually all known age-associated disorders, such as heart disease, obesity, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and liver and kidney disease. Currently, treatments are in clinical trials to re-lengthen telomeres and remove senescent cells. In the near future, 20 to 30 years from now, medical technology will have the capacity to vastly extend the human health span and lifespan by protecting humans from the effects of old age and reversing the aging process through the use of telomerase therapies. Why should we cure aging? Every day around the world, 150,000 people a day die, and 100,000 of those deaths are as a result of age-related diseases. The inevitability of death from aging has been an undeniable fact for all of human history. It has only been until quite recently that humans have developed the technology to begin treating and curing aging. Most people are unaware of the rapidly advancing field known as biogerontology, the study of the biology of human aging, and are stuck in what is called the pro-aging trance, a term coined by Dr. Aubrey de Grey. This pro-aging trance is essentially a series of myths that exist to rationalize and cope with the consequences and historical inevitability of death from aging. But curing aging ultimately comes down to saving lives. One myth that exists is that aging is natural and we should not fight it. First of all, aging, or more accurately, cellular senescence, is not universal. There are many species that exhibit what is known as negligible senescence and do not show symptoms of aging, such as lobsters, tortoises, crocodiles, and rockfish. Humanity has decided throughout history that many natural processes are undesirable. We invented antibiotics and vaccines because naturally getting sick is undesirable and often fatal, not to mention all the modern technologies that afford us a safer, easier life than our ancestors. And finally, there seems to be little opposition towards treating the diseases of aging, such as heart disease, cancer, and stroke. Fighting these individual components of aging seem to be acceptable, so it would only seem that targeting the aging process itself, which is the #1 contributor to developing age-related disease, would be the most effective strategy towards overcoming these diseases. The second myth is that having a finite lifespan gives meaning to life. The average human lifespan has increased by 50% in the past century, along with the quality of life provided by modern technology. Not to mention that curing aging does not mean that you can die from accidents, infections, diseases, or suicide. It just means you won't die from aging. The third myth is that not everyone would benefit from a cure for aging. This myth is based on a few inaccurate assumptions. One is that there will only be one all-encompassing cure for aging, and it will happen all at once. This scenario is highly unlikely, given that medical technology advances incrementally. The first therapies for aging will not be perfect and will most likely not completely cure aging outright. A concept called longevity escape velocity, popularized by Dr. Aubrey de Grey, explains that as long as you can age slower than the passage of time, then you will not die of aging. An example of this would be as if in 36 years from now, in the year 2053, when I'm 60 years old, a therapy is devised that can reverse my aging process by 30 years, so that when I'm chronologically 90, I will be biologically 60 again. In the additional 30 years that I have gained chronologically, I will not have aged past the year 60 biologically, thus buying me more time, now in the year 2083, for me to take advantage of medical therapies that have advanced during the span of 30 years, which will further extend my life. Another assumption is that doing something isn't worth doing if not everybody immediately will be able to access it. Vaccines and antibiotics were once incredibly expensive, and very few people could access them. However, once the curative benefit was established, then they became ubiquitous and everyone was able to access them. The fourth and final myth is that overpopulation will lead to the collapse of society. This myth is based on a misunderstanding of population dynamics. In a study conducted in 2010 and published in the journal Rejuvenation Research, the demographic consequences of defeating aging were explored. The study applied to the population of Sweden. They found that over a 100-year period, assuming no aging occurred after the age of 60, and that the fertility rate stayed the same, that the population of Sweden would only increase by 22%, from 9.1 million to 11 million people in a 100-year period. The reason the population would not explode is because large population growth comes from new births, not a lower mortality rate. Curing aging would be the most pivotal point in human history, allowing us to overcome our inevitable mortality. Older people who are vast repositories of wisdom, experience, and knowledge would be able to continually contribute to society. Cooperation and sustainability would be valued over individualism and greed, because people would live long enough to see the consequences of their actions. Without the prospect of dying from aging, relationships would be redefined. If your great-grandmother looked as young as you and could beat you in a sprint around the block, then it would radically transform how you view the generational divide. Healthcare costs would be dramatically reduced without the need for enormous costs of end-of-life care. And society would be more productive and more energetic, while a whole population of youthful individuals. Ultimately, curing aging is part of a noble pursuit of compassion, which will prevent the suffering and deaths of countless lives.